I'm glad that you can both be here, or everyone who is here can be here. And I'm also glad that there's no big school rivalry going on in virtual cyberspace or anything like that. But it's great that people can come together for this. And I'm glad you're here taking some time out of your evening to learn about financial aid. My name is Ben Soman. That's the phone number for the financial aid office at Marian. And if you do need anything, please do feel free to give us a call. Just since we're a local school that has a financial aid office, well, any college or university does have a financial aid office, but we're a fully functioning office. I've been at Marian for about 20 years now, and I've spent most of that time in some way, shape, or form in financial aid, although I haven't been completely in it the whole time. But I like doing these kinds of presentations because I get to talk to people about some basic things, like what the goal of financial aid is. The goal is really so that the upper 1% isn't the only people getting aid. It's really meant to help people in paying for college. And when I say people, I mean students and parents, because financial aid is really meant to be that bridge. There's going to be a cost for financial aid, or there's going to be a cost for college or university on one side. There's going to be what you can afford to pay on the other side. Financial aid is meant to be bridging that gap. Now, that might be a really wide bridge. That might be like the Mackinac Straits Bridge. That might be something really small, like the covered bridge we have at the park here in Fond du Lac. That might be somewhere in between. But the size of the bridge will depend on a lot of things when we go through the financial aid process. One of those things is going to be the cost of attendance. Now, the cost of attendance can vary quite a bit from school to school, but it's something that we use to help figure out what your financial aid award should be. So we take the actual cost of tuition and fees at the school. If the student is living on campus for room and board costs, even if they're living at home, we put in some room and board costs because there might be just some expenses with that. We put in costs for transportation, for books and supplies, living expenses. All of that comes up to the cost of attendance. Now, that's going to be larger than the direct cost you're going to be billed from the school. If you don't get any kind of financial aid and they say your cost of attendance is $40,000 a year, you might only be paying $35,000 because we're putting in, there's going to be expenses for transportation, living expenses, things like that. You're not going to be billed on those. We also want you to figure out an expected family contribution. Now, the expected family contribution is what the family can contribute towards the student's education, mom and dad and the student. That's figured out by doing the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. I'm going to go into a lot of detail on that, not as much as I did when I was doing these face-to-face. It's harder to sit here and listen to this for this long. But the FAFSA is going to have things from like income from parents and students, the size of the family, how many people are in college, how old is the parent, what state do you live in, do you have assets, those kinds of things all go into the formula to come up with the expected family contribution. There's four big things: parent income and parent assets, student income and student assets. You put all those yellow and blue things together, it makes green. That's the expected family contribution. Figuring out financial need then is just taking the cost of attendance, subtracting out the expected family contribution, and that equals the financial need. That's how big your bridge is going to be. Now, that bridge might be completely covered with financial aid. That bridge might be just going most of the way there. You might have a little jump at the end. But that's going to help determine what aid you qualify for. Now, your financial need can vary greatly from school to school. School 1 could be Marian. School 2 could be UW-Oshkosh. School 3 could be Moraine Park. Your expected family contribution, though, is exactly the same at all three schools. So you're going to have high financial need at Marian because we cost more. You're not going to have as high of need at Oshkosh because they don't cost as much. You're going to have pretty low financial need at Marine Park because they're a pretty inexpensive school. But your expected family contribution, what you're expected to pay, is going to be the same, or your ability to pay is going to be the same regardless of what schools you're looking at. So what do you need to do? Well, first, before a school can give you any kind of financial assistance, you have to be admitted to the school. Now, you can apply for financial aid before you're admitted. Most people do that, or a lot of people do that, depending on when their school admits people. Sometimes people send their FAFSA to a school as they're a just in case. And I'm not going to apply to there until I find out if I'm into my top school. That's fine. Sometimes if people are looking at highly selective schools, they're not letting you know about admission until after Christmas. Well, do the FAFSA now, get the FAFSA done, and then once they let you know that you're admitted, then they can do a financial aid award for you right away. Get an FSA ID. Students and parents both need to get a federal student aid identifier. The FSA ID is your electronic signature. You use that on the FAFSA, you use that on a couple of other federal things. And that's, like I said, the electronic signature for the student and for a parent. The FAFSA requires 2 FSA IDs, one from the student and one from a parent. Now, which parent? We'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you have a regular nuclear family, mom and dad and student and child, I hope you don't call your kid student, but then it's just mom or dad needs to get it. It doesn't need to be both. Complete the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA. You say it like you're from Wisconsin, the FAFSA. You go to studentaid.gov for both of these, and then you sign in there. I do recommend get your FSA ID soon, because it takes 24 to 72 hours sometimes for your FSA ID to be verified. That basically means the Social Security Administration says, yep, they are who they say they are. Get that FSA ID done before you do the FAFSA. Lastly, schools might ask for some information. Some schools have their own financial aid applications. Sometimes schools have additional information that you need to send in. You might be selected for verification, where the government says to the schools, double check their work on the FAFSA. It's not necessarily meaning you did anything wrong. It's just saying, we want to protect our investment. So schools will let you know if you have more things you have to turn in. So you can do the FAFSA electronically at studentaid.gov. And you just click on the start here and you start it. The FAFSA is available now for the fall 21-22 school year. There's also a FAFSA out there for the 2021 school year, the 2020-2021 school year. When you go out there, make sure you're doing it for the 2021-2022 school year. You're going to get the option when you log in. You log in as either the student or the parent, and then it's going to take you through the form. The first section is student demographic information. A lot of that comes in when you sign in, because your FSA ID is going to know things like your social security number, your name, your email, things like that. Oh, one quick note with the FSA ID. Parents and students, you each need an FSA ID. Don't use the same email and don't use the same phone number as parents and students together. The reason for that is it starts to overwrite some information. You end up tangling things up into a really, really messy knot. So students and parents use separate phone numbers, use separate emails. Students, don't use your high school email account, because once you graduate, you're probably going to lose that. Parents, I do not recommend using your work email account, and here's the reason why. I met with a mom of a current student at Marian yesterday, and she said, I'm having some trouble getting into my FSA ID, and my problem is I left my job a couple months ago, and I used my work email. So how do we change that? We got it changed, it just delayed it with the FAFSA then. So getting back to the FAFSA though, you sign in as the student signs in, ask for demographic information, ask some really no-brainer kinds of things, like what's your middle initial? Are you married? You know, basic things like that. The only thing you might not know off the top of your head is what's your driver's license number. If you know it, great. Pull out your driver's license, put it in there. If you don't know it or you don't have a driver's license, no big deal, not the end of the world. Section 2 is school selection. First off, though, you have to put in your high school. And you just do a quick search, Wisconsin, Waupun, it's gonna have the pick list of your options there. Then school selection for the FAFSA, what schools do you want the FAFSA sent to? You can send it to up to 10 different colleges or universities. I would hope you're not looking at 10 still, that you're serious enough that you're gonna send the FAFSA to, but that's fine if you are. And that's fine if you wanted to send it to 10 and then go back in and send it, amend those and send it to 10 more. It gets tricky if you do that, but you could send it to as many schools as you want that way. You do get to pick your housing option for each individual school. So if you're applying to Marian, Moraine Park, and UW-Oshkosh, and you're gonna live on campus with Marian, you're gonna live in an apartment with UW-Oshkosh, and you're gonna live at home with Moraine Park, you can do that. That's easy to do. You can do a pick list for the schools, enter in the state and then the city, or the state, and then you get the options for it. Or you can type in the school code. School code is gonna be just a short number. The schools are gonna be happy to give it to you. It's gonna be something like Marian's is 003861. So just 6 digits is probably gonna start with 00. And like I said, you can send it to as many schools as you want if you want to submit the FAFSA multiple times. Section 3 is dependency status. This is one that a lot of people ask questions about because Section 3 figures out if parent information needs to be on the FAFSA or not. A lot of people get a little mixed up. When they do their taxes, you can file your taxes as a dependent person or as an independent person. And it's a matter of, well, who's going to benefit more from this? Are parents going to get a bigger return or refund, or would the student get a bigger refund? With the FAFSA, dependency or independency is determined by the form. Now, Section 3 is going to be asking a lot of questions. It already knows your date of birth, but if this is the year that you'll turn 24, then you're independent. You don't need parent information. Now, I hope if you're coming out of high school or if you're in high school now, that's not something you're going to be answering yes to. I hope you're under 24 if you're still in high school. It's going to be asking some things about, like, do you have a child that you're supporting more than 50%? Do you have a spouse or someone other than a child or a spouse that you're supporting more than 50%? Are you in the active duty in the military, or are you a veteran? Were you an orphan or ward of the court anytime after you turned 13? Or were you in foster care? Are you an emancipated minor? And we don't do emancipated minors in Wisconsin, so that's a little tricky. But are you in some kind of legal guardianship? Are you homeless, or have you been declared homeless by like a school or state agency or something like that? If you answer yes to any of those, then you're independent. You don't need parent information on your FAFSA. If you answer no to all of them, and I would think that most students who are watching this now, or most parents that are online with this, the student is going to be answering no to all of those, and we'd need parent information on the FAFSA. Then comes the question, whose parents are supposed to be on there? Now, if we go back to that example earlier, that it's mom, dad, and junior, Your regular nuclear family, it's pretty obvious. It's the birth parents that live in the household. If parents are not married though, if birth parents are not married, biological parents are not married, then it's the parent that's providing the most support. Now, odds are, if the student is living with one parent more than the other, that parent is providing the most support. If it's a 50-50 split, it's right down the middle. We do actually have an odd number of days in most years. We don't this year, but that's weird. Most years though, it's not an even split. You're going to be spending more time with one than the other. If it really, really is even, then it's okay, who's paying for health insurance? You know, things like that. Now, it doesn't matter who claims who on taxes. It doesn't matter if there was in a divorce decree that one gets to claim one child and one gets to claim another. It's really who's in the house. Now, the FAFSA is looking for the household's financial situation. So if student is living with mom and mom gets remarried, we do need stepdad's information on there then as well. If dad, biological dad, is not married, you don't get to choose dad just because he's not making as much money as mom and stepdad do together. It doesn't mean that stepdad has to pay for the student's college. It just means stepdad's information needs to be on there so that we can get a good idea of what the household's financial situation looks like. Section 5 is financial information. That's where you're taking information from your taxes and putting them on the FAFSA. Now, we are here in October of 2020, and as of October 1st, when you could have first done the FAFSA, 2019 was the most recent year's tax information. And so for the entire year that we're doing a 2021-2022 FAFSA, you're using 2019 tax information. Now, you can do a pretty easy thing called the IRS data transfer or IRS data retrieval tool. Basically, that can take information off your taxes and put it on your FAFSA. I really recommend to do that if it allows you. There's certain situations where you can't do it. But otherwise, if you can't do it, click on the box and that is asking for it. It'll give you instructions on it, but click on the box and it's going to give you a help and hints. And it's going to show you specifically what line you need to be looking for on your tax return. And just take whatever amount is in that line and put it in the box. It does ask for you to split out parent information though. On your tax return on a 1040, if you file a joint return, it's just asking for what is the joint income. FAFSA wants us to break that out. What did mom make? What did dad make? The reason for that is if there is some kind of adjustment that needs to be made in the future, like mom loses her job and we need to adjust mom's income, or parents get divorced and we need to take dad's info out there, or heaven forbid one parent passes away, we need to have it split out so we know whose information we're dealing with. Now, some things you will need to include on the FAFSA. It asks for investments. Investments would be any real estate that you own other than the house that you live in. If you have stocks, if you have bonds, mutual funds, if you have a 529 college savings plan or an EdVest account, that does need to be included. That should be included on the parent side and not on the child's side. If you don't know what an UGMA or an UTMA or a KEHO plan are, you probably don't have them. If you do know, good for you. Include them or don't include them based on where it falls on the little chart here. Do not include the home you live in. Don't include retirement plans or life insurance. It asks for if you run a business, you have to list the value of that. You only have to list the value of that if you have more than 100 employees. If you have 99 or less, you do not include that. Don't count cattle if you're a farmer. You should not include the cash value of any investments though. If you own real estate and you have a mortgage against it, if you were to sell it right now, what would you actually get from it paying off your mortgage? So the FAFSA is not the time to brag. I'm sorry, you do that for both the student and the parent. If student didn't work in 2019, that's fine. You still need to put in if they made any income and any kind of investments or cash savings checking, that kind of thing. Section 6 is signing the FAFSA. Now, if you had already used your FSA ID to sign in or to do the IRS data transfer, you've already got your FSA IDs entered in. You really just need to agree to the terms and conditions. There's a box that literally says, sign that FAFSA. Click on the box. When you're done, when both of you have signed it, then there's a submit button. I have talked to people, plenty of people in the past that have said, why haven't you gotten my FAFSA? I submitted that weeks ago. Did you submit it? No, I can log right in now and I can, oh yeah, okay, never mind, I figured it out. They just didn't click submit. When you're done, you're gonna get a confirmation page. And it's gonna tell you your expected family contribution on there. It's also gonna tell you how much in student loan you're gonna qualify for. That dollar amount is gonna be based on the year in school that you listed. It's also going to tell you if you qualify for Pell Grant or not. And if you do, good for you. You're going to get some free money from the federal government. If you don't, that's fine. You might still qualify for grant or loan or scholarship money from your state or from your institution. So there is free help on doing the FAFSA. If just going through that quick synopsis makes you feel a little overwhelmed, there's a thing called College Goal Wisconsin. It's completely online this year. You go to the website there, collegegoalwi.org/register, and you register in advance. I will tell you that October 7th and 14th are both full. So it's 21st, 28th, or November 4th or 11th. It's four Wednesdays in a row. Starts at 6 p.m., is being done online. It should be really good. You can show up, get your FAFSA done, and you might win a scholarship for doing it. So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about some different types of financial aid. I mentioned scholarships, grants, loans. There are student employment options as well. Most financial aid is coming from three places: the federal government, the state government, or the college or university. The best kind is gift money, free aid. That might be in the form of grants and scholarships. The federal government gives out Pell Grants and Supplemental Education Opportunity Grants, or SEOG. The actual dollar amount is determined by the school. The FAFSA might say you can qualify for up to $6,000 on when you fill the FAFSA out, but then the school might say, well, you're part-time, you only qualify for $3,000. That's fine. The state has a Wisconsin grant that's good at public or private schools. TIP grant is a separate application, kinds of things. Lots of scholarships or grants are available from institutions, or we call outside scholarships. It's from anywhere other than the government or the school. Loans are an option as well. Loans obviously have to be repaid, but parents, if you took out a Stafford loan, that's what the red is there, the federal direct student loans, either subsidized or unsubsidized loans. Subsidized means the government's paying the interest on it while you're in school. Unsubsidized means interest is building. Parents, you could take out a Parent Plus loan. It would be in your name. Basically, you could have 10 years to pay it back. Perkins loan in purple there is kind of fading away, but I left it on there just because you might be able to find it somewhere. Someone might offer it to you. There's a few state grant or state loans out there, not many, but they're kind of hard to find these days. You can get private or alternative loans though. I put that as the last option on there because usually the others are going to have maybe better interest rates on it, but interest rates are low right now. We're seeing a lot more people do the private loans. Those would be a separate application though. Student employment is also something that may be available for students. It might depend on the school and it might depend on the FAFSA information. Federal work study is a thing that the federal government can pay schools to pay people. A lot of schools have campus work plans as well. Working on campus is a great way to get to know other people and to get to know the campus a little bit better. Students who work on campus at Marian tend to do better in school because they have time management built into their schedule a little bit better. Great way to work extra, or get some extra money, get some work experience, and you're a student first with on-campus employment. Most schools will have some kind of payment plan option though. Like we do a thing where you can do monthly payment plans each semester. You sign up for one each semester, but some schools will let you sign up for a payment plan for the whole year, spread it over 12 months. Some might say, we want this paid off each semester. You're only spreading it over 4 months. It depends on the school, but if you do have like an EdVest or a 529 plan, this is what you have it for. If you have veterans benefits, a lot of times those can transfer from parents down to students. Home equity loans are sometimes an option as well. Interest rates are pretty low right now. I just always recommend watch out with home equity loans because you don't want to get underwater on your mortgage or something like that. If you know of any other kinds of things like DVR, or if you are a member of a Native American tribe, the thing to remember with that though is if you're Native American enough, if you don't know if you're Native American enough for a Bureau of Indian Affairs grant, you're not Native American enough for one. But keep on the lookout for scholarships as well through like scholarship search engines like FastWeb or CapEx. Broke Scholar is, I don't know how great they are, but I love their name. Scholarship search engines you can sign up for and you can apply for national scholarships. There might be local things on there as well, but keep your eyes peeled because scholarships sometimes just kind of pop up. Check for scholarships locally as well. Now, I know we have people from 2 schools here. I just put on Waupans High School's website for their scholarships. Please, CWCS people, don't go there. But check with your school counselors to see what local scholarships you can apply for. You are significantly more likely to qualify for scholarships from local entities than you are from national. Small scholarships add up. And keep on the lookout through any kinds of clubs, organizations you might belong to, church groups, civic groups, places of employment, organizations that your places of employment belong to. When I was in high school, I worked at a grocery store in a small town, wasn't part of a chain or anything like that. We had about 15 or 20 employees, so we didn't have a scholarship program, but the Wisconsin Grocers Association did have a scholarship program. I got to apply for a scholarship there. I didn't get it, but at least I got the opportunity to, and I'm doing better than the girl who got it. So not bitter at all. So basically, if you want to compare apples to apples when it comes to school aid offers, because you're going to get aid offers from every school that you've been admitted to and that you've sent the FAFSA to. Make sure you're figuring out the net cost. Take the tuition and fees cost, room and board cost, and subtract out scholarships, grants, and student loans. Or if you don't want to take out the loans, don't subtract out the loans. That equals your net cost. That's what it's going to actually cost to attend that school. That's what they're going to bill you for. Just remember, don't subtract out federal work study. Sometimes schools put it on there to kind of like puff up their financial aid awards. You don't want to subtract that because you only get that if you work it. And then you're working off your bill. You're not actually having that come off automatically. So something to keep in mind. I have the chat open and I noticed that no one's asked questions so far, which tells me I'm doing a thorough job. But if people do have questions, this is a great time to ask. Does anyone have questions that they're wondering about?
Ben, do you want them to type them in the chat, or do you want them just to ask them?
Right, you know what? Let me. Okay, we did get a question in there. I'm going to allow people to unmute themselves now.
Okay.
And if you do have a question, let's see how this goes. But I will just ask answer the question that someone asked in the chat. What if you have multiple children in college? How does FAFSA work? That's an excellent question. You have to do multiple FAFSAs then. Now, The parent information on the FAFSA should be exactly the same because parents, you're not changing. The student side of the information, though, could be different. So you do have to do more than one FAFSA. The good news is when you do the FAFSA, then you can just go in, and when you finish the FAFSA, it's going to ask you as the parent, do you want to do another FAFSA right away and transfer your information? Yes, you do. Because then it's going to just transfer all the parent information over. If you've already done the IRS data transfer, it's going to move that over for you. If you, it should be even bringing over a few of the things that are just specifically family related on there, like household size or that kind of thing. Oh, one other thing about number of people in college. If a parent, if you're in college, that's excellent. Do the FAFSA for yourself. Parents don't get to count themselves on their students' FAFSA as a number in college. Parents back in my day ruined it. My parents didn't. They were pretty honest on it. They were too honest on it. But parents sometimes ruined it back in the day by signing up for like a bartending class at like their local tech college and saying, yep, I'm in college now. No, you don't count for that. If you do have a parent in college, though, let the schools know, because schools can make the determination, should we be counting the parent as a member of the household in college, or should we just be deducting what they're paying out of pocket from their income? So there's a couple ways to do that. If you do have other special circumstances, though, like a loss of income, like if you're going off of the 2019 tax information, but your 2020 has been weird. And, you know, if you're not making as much this year, let the schools know about it. Each individual school is going to make a determination on that, but that can help with the shopping around process. Ms. Miller, I did notice, are you still recording this?
Yes. Do you want me to end that?
Recording? Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So the next question